G'day guys, welcome to Out Roving. In today's video, I'll be replacing the wheel bearings on my boat trailer. For those looking to give it a go on their own trailer for the first time, I'll do my best to explain it step by step, and hopefully it'll give you the confidence you need to give yours a go. I've been pretty fortunate enough to travel around with my boat. Along the way I've had plenty of car issues like flat tires, CVs going, overheating issues, but I've never had an issue with the boat trailer. And that's because I replace or re-grease my trailer bearings once a year. Remember, maintenance is key. So for the parts, I don't have too much here. I've got some brake and parts cleaner. This helps with getting rid of the old grease when you're cleaning the old parts. I've got some Newline full drive and marine multi-purpose grease. I've got two sets of marine bearing kits. I've got the Holden type here because I have a Holden axle. Do recommend getting some paper towel and gloves. Righto, let's make a start. The first thing you want to do is crack the wheel nuts while the wheel is on the ground. Righto, so now that they're cracked, the next thing I'm going to do is jack it up and get the wheel off the ground. All these nuts have been cracked, so it's just as simple as pulling them off now. So now the wheel's off, we can see our actual hub assembly itself. You can see I've got a little bit of rust, a little bit of corrosion on mine. It's not too bad. We'll give it a clean up and another lick of paint anyways. Next, we have to get access to the castle nut. So the nut is actually what holds the hub on to your axle. And that's hidden behind the hubcap here. So just get a hammer and you're going to tap it off. Just work your way around and it will pop out. Just like that. So now it's cleaned up a little bit. You can see that there's a castle nut. That's what holds the hub onto the axle. What we want to do is just get this split pin out. That way we can undo the castle nut. There you go. So that one was a little bit stubborn and ended up blowing apart on me. That's all good, we got it out. So now we should be able to spin the castle nut off, or the axle nut. Now the nut is off, now everything will pretty much slide out. Remove all the old grease, give it a quick clean and get it ready for the reassembly. So that's the inner race, and you've got the outer race for the smaller bearing on the outside. So you can see here, you can see all the scorn marks. It is good practice to replace them when you do replace the bearings as well, which is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you the two ways you can get them out at home. Method one is where I use a welder to apply a bead of weld around the race. This method isn't all that common, it's a little bit more old school because one, not many people own a welder, and two, you have to be careful you don't accidentally weld the race into the hub. The heat helps the race shrink and it can be pushed out very easily without much effort, as you can see in the video here. Method number two, you need three things, either a chisel or a punch, preferably a punch because a chisel can easily eat into the hub material, a hammer, and a whole lot of patience. What you do then is you rest the chisel or the punch tip against the race lip and you smack it out. Be prepared, this method does take a lot more energy and time, but it can be done. There are two main types of bearings, Holden and Ford. A lot of people are under the misconception that the hub types dictate what type of bearings you use. That is not always the case. The easiest way to tell is when you pull out your old bearings, take note of the part number on them and just go get the same ones from the shops. What actually dictates the bearing you use is the axle itself. You can run a Ford hub with Holden bearings and races, which is what my trailer runs. Best way to check is to measure your axle to figure out which ones you need. The Holden bearings suit 39mm round or 40mm square, which is what I have in my case. You can see if I take the Ford bearing kit and try and fit it on my axle, the ID of the seal is way too big and it doesn't sit flush. The exact same thing with the inner or larger bearing. You can see that it doesn't seat properly when I try and put it on. If we now take the correct bearings, which is the Holden type, you can see the seal fits flush, and so does the inner bearing. Make sure that if you are replacing the race as well that's seated inside the hub, that you're using the correct race to go with the bearing. So now the hub is all clean, painted and dried up, we can start with the reassembly. So I've got here my rubber seal, the retaining ring or lip, whatever you want to call it. I've got the inner or the larger bearing set with the race, and I've got the outer or smaller bearing with the race. What we need to do first is put the races in, and you're going to use the old ones you've got, which we cut a slit using the angle grinder in, and this is what's going to help us put them in situ or get them down in there, down the shaft. It won't be able to work like that if you put it in that way, because the bearing needs to sit in through the front like that. Alright, so it's not going to work. That's why the fin side has to go on the outside, or the open side has to be facing up, so it can sit in like that. Okay, what you want to do is just put it in and gently tap around with a hammer. When you get to this stage where you can't really hammer it anymore, this is when the old cup or the old bearing cone, the race, will come in handy. So what you want to do is you want to put the thick edge over the top like that. Don't do it thin edge to thin edge, otherwise you're not going to have any points to get the old one out. And then you're going to use that to hammer it into place like this. Pretty much you want to try and get it as far down as possible. There's a little lip inside where it's going to sit up against. So I don't know if you can see, but there's that lip down there where I'm pointing to. See it there? And that's what we want the race to sit up against with. So now both the races are in, we can go ahead with greasing up our bearings and assembling it all together. So this would be the time to glove up if you have any, or if you are going to use gloves. I find that for everything else beforehand, I can go without the gloves, but as soon as I start doing this part, I definitely want the gloves then. Before I do the bearings themselves, what I'm going to do is apply a very thin layer of that. That'll do. So back to the hub, the first thing I'm going to do is apply a coat of grease around the races on each side. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to do the inner side first, and then I'm going to do the outside. So what I like to do is get a good blob. What we need to do is pack the bearing with grease. So what I like to do is have a good blob on my hand and then press it in that motion like that, working around, going in a circle. Alright, so I'm pretty confident. You can see there I've done a little test. It's gone right through. So it's inside the where the rollers are and inside the cage there. So what I like to do now as well is just give it a thick layer on the outside like that. And then once that's good, you can pop it straight in. Like that. What I like to do as well is I like to get a good amount and fill the cavity inside as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the retaining ring or the retaining lip on as well. So what I like to do is just put a little bit of grease on that as well. Start on the other side. And it's the exact same thing. Grease on the hand, in a blob. Cool, now that's all done, I'd like to do the exact same thing. Give it a nice coat on the outside. and that can go straight in like that. Final step of the assembly is putting the rubber seal on at the back. You can see here I like to grease mine a little bit, and that just goes in like that. So one thing to note, that's the assembly for a marine double lip seal. If you're using one of these generic sort of seals with the spring inside, the assembly is a little bit different. I'll cut over to a different video of me installing one. These actually get driven into the hub. Best use like a soft mallet and a block of wood or a bit of metal. Just put it over the top and then drive it in with a hammer. With the assembly all together now, including the seal at the back, I'm going to put it onto my axle. Now your hub's back onto the spindle or the axle. You just want to make sure the seal at the back's sitting nice and flush, and then you can move on. Next, I'll put in my washer and castle or axle nut. I'm going to reuse the same ones that came off the trailer because they're in pretty good nick. And you can see already they're getting a thin coat of grease just from me touching them. That's pretty much as far as it wants to go hand tight, so I'm going to leave it there. So the next step is we have to make sure our hub has no play, that everything's seated nicely before we put the split pin through the castle nut. I've seen people do it a few different ways. I've seen people, they'll do it as is here, and they'll make sure that there's no play. Like right now, there's no play, and they'll just keep backing it up until it starts to play. And when it does, they'll just tighten it a little bit back up. Because what you want to do is make sure it's tight enough that the hub won't shift that way, back and forth, but that it's loose enough that the hub's going to spin with no issues. Alright, so what I like to do though is I actually like to put the wheel back on at this stage, and then I'll do the rest with the wheel on. Now that the wheel's on and it's fastened by 2 lug nuts, I'm going to give it a quick shimmy test. Yep, so I can see that there is still a fair bit of play. Alright, which means my castle nut will need to be tightened up a little bit more. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to slowly tighten it until there's no more play. So there's a little bit of play left there. There's no more play, and the wheel is still spinning freely. So now you're happy with the positioning, you can put your split pin in. So now that the split pin's in, we just need to put the hubcap back on. So what I like to do is I actually like to fill the void in here with grease. Something like that, that way when you put it on, the castle nut will be surrounded by grease, and then any excess will just pop back out. Press that hub cap back on. Then we can remove the jack and lower it. That way we can do the final stage. So once they're all relatively tight, you want to do the star cross pattern and giving it that one final torque. All I need to do is do the exact same process for the other side, which I'm not going to show you on camera because it's the exact same thing. Righto, that's going to be pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that, learned a few things, or hopefully gave you the confidence to give your own bearings a go at home. Till you see me next time, be safe out there. Hope you enjoyed.